All right, we're live. So we're one day late because of the July 4th holiday in the US. So we're going to go live tonight. I'm a little bit under the weather, so my voice isn't the normal tone, and it's probably going to be a pretty quick one, but I still want to have this and get it out there. Um, what I really want to focus on coming up this week was some news in and around the realm of what's happening with all these cyber attacks, what DDoS attacks are taking place, what I see in the marketplace to solve for this, and just in general how I'm playing it or how I'm thinking about playing it. What I would ask is if you ever experienced any kind of hack, a ransomware experience, please let us know below. And secondly, are you playing the cybersecurity field? Are there particular companies you like? Why do you like them? Let us know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So first things first, let me jump in pretty quick tonight because, like I said, I'm a little under the weather, so this will be a shorter one than usual. Just something to be aware of as we're going to this week. Over the weekend, hundreds and potentially thousands of companies were affected by an absolute massive cybersecurity attack with ransomware following. So this is one of those classic experiences where I say to myself, look, I don't care who's responsible, where it came from, what country or group did this. I think it's pretty obvious from everything I'm reading what happened. But what we're seeing is this huge push to say, look, we're going to do something about cybersecurity in the US as an example. We know that President Biden has named cybersecurity right on par with terrorism. It's getting a lot of attention, but it sort of just keeps on happening. And I think that this is something to be aware of as we go into this week, that the markets may just bounce right off this like it's no big deal. But we're seeing that gasoline has been vulnerable. We're seeing that food supply can be vulnerable. We're seeing that energy supply can be vulnerable. We're seeing all kinds of businesses, big and small, hit on a regular and recurring basis. And oftentimes what we're seeing is it's coming in the form of a DDoS attack. So a DDoS attack is a distributed denial of service attack. And essentially it's just a malicious attempt to mess around with the traffic flow of the server. What happens is the server essentially doesn't know what to do. It shuts things down and goes inoperable. This is a big deal because a DDoS attack can be continuous and keep hitting that server. And to get things back up and running again, we see this push for ransomware. Of course, there's also the general hacking and phishing piece of this, where a hacker will get access to your system, essentially lock you out of your system. And the system could be your personal computer. It could be your entire network if you're a large company. So what's interesting about this is, as we're seeing the rise of ransomware and cybersecurity more than ever, we're also seeing the rise of the industry trying to stop or prevent this. We're seeing it from a political and regulation perspective. And we're also seeing it bump up against the crypto space as well, because the one thing that seems to be really common here is that all these folks who are doing the hacking and the ransomware work are then demanding it come back to them in the form of Bitcoin or maybe Zcash, Monero, et cetera, these other ones. In an interesting turn of events, also, Bitcoin.org was hacked, and now they have a ransomware attack going on with them where they're asking for 0.5 Bitcoin to be paid, about $17,000 or so. But I just thought it was interesting that the world is really colliding on this front, and I think that it's really interesting to note. So as I'm thinking about all these attacks, what happened over the weekend, the fact that it doesn't seem to stop, it ties in with crypto, I just want to get a quick feel for how big is this market and what should I start to be doing on my end as an investor to think about it. So we're seeing numbers that are pretty wild as far as what the overall total addressable market might be for the cybersecurity space. But in essence, we're talking anywhere from like 150 billion to 300 to 400 billion in the next couple of years. So long story short, it's a massive market. So I think the good news is when I go out and look at all the different players, there's traditional players, there's more cutting edge players, there's more specific point players who cover like one feature or one function of the cybersecurity front. I think it's important to probably think about, do you have a good bucket of cybersecurity players? Are you pretty well balanced as far as who those players are, what they defend against, and do you have sort of a 360-degree view of that cybersecurity space within your portfolio? I think that there are a number of ETFs and indexes that exist in and around this. In particular, we see cybersecurity really broken out as like point of attack, recovery post. We see even, I think probably interesting too, is it's not just the players who are trying to prevent the attacks. We also see like cold storage players. We see the players who are restoring data on the back end or storing data in offline systems. Sometimes we see those as cold or hot connections. If you're not familiar with the IT space, this is a pretty big deal. And it even actually starts to go into the other pieces of your portfolio where if you have a lot of big companies that might be vulnerable to an attack, what will that do to that stock price? And do they have the ability to get up and running quickly? As we saw with the Colonial Pipelines a couple weeks back, it took quite some time to get those oil pipelines back running again. So it's important to understand what those consequences might look like for a company you're invested in. All that said, though, I'm going to end pretty quick. As you can tell, I am under the weather. I'm not feeling 100% tonight. But I did want to throw this out there that if there's companies that you're looking at that you think are great plays or something that we should be looking at, let us know. We'd love to run some analysis on it. There's a lot of really popular names in the cybersecurity realm, but what I'm not seeing is a lot of players in the ransomware realm, those who are helping people get back afterwards. So what I think is really interesting is, with potentially thousands of folks being hit with ransomware this weekend, is this going to be a scenario where they just pay because paying is the easiest thing to do? And paying means their systems get turned back on. It's maybe a cost of doing business. Then I start to think, like, I wonder if there's going to be any available insurance for something like this, an event where we can be covered by some sort of, like, I don't know, DDoS attack is built into the insurance policy, or are we not protected against DDoS and that's the fault of a cybersecurity vendor who's now going to get hit for that? Excuse me. So with that, I'm going to leave it there. I'll be feeling better by next week, I think. So I guess really what I'm looking this week is I'm trying to analyze all these cybersecurity stocks, look at the total addressable market, who plays in what sectors and where, and what those overall growth patterns are looking like. I think there's a lot of great players. I think there's a lot of strong, large adjustable markets here that we can focus on. I think there's a lot of key point solutions that can eventually probably and very realistically be bought or acquired by some of the bigger players as well. So I might want to start to look at who those might be. And then as a part two to that, I want to make sure I'm aware, are any of these companies that were hacked or phished or ransomware or DDoSed, do I hold any of them? Is it a problem for me personally? Am I protected against that? Are they just going to pay and take that as a cost of doing business? That's really where my head is at right now. I'm going to go take some cold and flu medicine. I'm going to call it a night. Thank you for watching. And again, please, if there's any specific sector or stocks or companies you're really looking at in the cybersecurity space, we'd love to hear about it. Additionally, if you've ever been hit by a hack or by ransomware or anything, we'd love to hear that story too. So without further ado, thanks so much. Sorry for the speed of this one. We'll be back to normal in a day or two. So thanks so much. Have a great night. Appreciate you watching live. Thanks so much, everybody.